Welcome to an AI journey into the world of ancient Egyptian deities. We will unravel the gods and goddesses who shaped the beliefs and practices of one of the oldest and most influential civilizations in human history. The civilization of ancient Egypt flourished for over 3,000 years along the fertile banks of the Nile River in northern Africa. This extensive timeline was marked by periods of unity and prosperity, as well as periods of fragmentation and decline, with ruling dynasties rising and falling in their attempts to leave a lasting legacy. 3 times, ancient Egypt emerged as one of the most powerful civilizations in the ancient world, during the eras known as the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom. Each of these periods produced remarkable advancements in culture, architecture, and governance, profoundly influencing the course of history. In the time of the Old Kingdom, Egypt was unified under the rule of a mighty pharaoh, who was considered divine and served as both a political and religious leader. This era is renowned for its colossal architectural achievements, including the Pyramid of Djoser in Saqqara and the 3 pyramids of Khufu, Khafra, and Menkaure in Giza, which served as monumental tombs protecting the pharaohs in the afterlife. The Middle Kingdom followed with a resurgence in stability, cultural flourishing, and centralized power. It was ended by the invasion of the Hyksos, a foreign Semitic people from the Near East who seized control of Lower Egypt, using advanced military technology, in particular war chariots. During the New Kingdom, Egypt experienced unprecedented power and prosperity, marked by military expansion and monumental construction under pharaohs such as Hatshepsut, Thutmose III, and Ramses II. Key achievements from this era include the royal tombs built in the Valley of the Kings, the temples of Luxor and Karnak, and the rock-cut temples of Abu Simbel. The Persian conquest of Egypt in 525 BC marks the decline of Egyptian civilization. The country was later occupied by Alexander the Great in 332 BC and was ruled by the Ptolemaic dynasty up until the death of Cleopatra VII in 30 BC, when Egypt became a province of the Roman Empire. To understand ancient Egyptian art and mythology, it is crucial to decipher their symbols, the most significant of which is the sun, personifying life, creation, and vitality through a series of important solar deities such as Ra, Atum, Khepri, and Bennu. Similarly, the Nile was represented by many gods and was regarded as the lifeblood of Egyptian civilization, providing fertile black earth through its regular flooding, which allowed agriculture to flourish and the people to prosper. The pyramids, which are emblematic of Egypt even today, were heavily influenced by Egyptian mythology. They were gateways through which the deceased pharaoh could ascend to the world of the gods and were filled with riches and sacred artifacts meant to ensure a successful journey. The Egyptians strongly believed that the body needed to be preserved through mummification in order for a person to attain immortality in the afterlife. They believed that the soul had different fragments, the ka, which means vital essence, and the ba, which could fly away after death in the form of a bird with a human head. These soul fragments needed the physical body, not only as a vessel, but also as a means to access the afterlife and maintain a connection to the living world. The Egyptians revered the natural world to the extent that they represented many of their gods with animal forms. Among the animals that they considered sacred, we enumerate cats, falcons, jackals, crocodiles, baboons, scarabs, and cows. Harming these animals was seen as a grave offense and could result in severe punishment, including death. The Egyptian writing system, known as hieroglyphics, was a complex method of communication that combined logographic and alphabetic elements, inscribed on temple walls, tombs, and papyrus scrolls. Other writing systems that were later developed included hieratic, a cursive form of hieroglyphics primarily used by priests for religious texts, and demotic, which served administrative and commercial purposes. The Rosetta Stone, discovered in 1799, was crucial for deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphics as it featured the same text written in 3 scripts: hieroglyphics, demotic, and Greek. And now that we have discussed some of the basics of ancient Egyptian culture, let's take a look at its main gods. Number 1. Nun, the primordial god. Nun was not the only primordial god in Egyptian mythology. He was part of a mysterious group of 8 deities that existed before creation. This group was known as the Ogdoad and was primarily worshipped in Hemenu, the city of the 8, later known as Hermopolis. The Ogdoad consisted of 4 male and female pairs. Nun and Naunet personified the watery state of primordial chaos, Kek and Kaukit represented darkness, He and Hauhet symbolized infinity, and Amun and Amunet embodied hiddenness or the unseen. In later representations of the Ogdoad, the 4 male gods were depicted with frog heads, while the 4 goddesses were shown with snake heads, symbolizing their connection to fertility and transformation. Despite the complexity of the Ogdoad, its central concept was that the universe before creation was an immense chaotic ocean, which the Egyptians called the waters of Nun. Nun symbolized this formless potential from which life would eventually emerge in the form of a bubble or a lotus flower. Unlike primordial gods from other mythologies, Nun did not oppose creation. He encouraged and facilitated it, which is why he was called the father of the gods. In Egyptian art, Nun is seen lifting the boat of the sun from the waters, and in the creation myth of Heliopolis, he is probably the one who raised the first pyramid of land on which the sun god was born. Nun embodies the silence and peace before creation. His tranquility was associated with that of sacred lakes in temple enclosures. However, he had no temples of his own and no priests or rituals. It is possible that as Egyptian civilization collapsed under foreign invasions, Nun began to be seen in a more negative light, as a force of chaos reclaiming the world and undoing creation. This could explain why, in the Coptic language of the Christian Orthodox Church in Egypt, the word Nun now refers to the depths of hell. Number 2. Atum, the god of creation. Egyptian mythology features many creation gods, each associated with a different local tradition. Atum was primarily worshipped in the city called Unu, or Heliopolis, and he rose to great prominence during the Old Kingdom. It is said that he created himself out of the waters of Nun. He emerged from these primeval waters, standing on a mound of earth called Benben, which had the shape of a pyramid. In other versions of the myth, Atum is said to have emerged from a cosmic egg or from a lotus flower. Atum is regarded as the source of all life. By spitting or sneezing, he created Shu, the god of air, and Tefnut, the goddess of moisture. These 2 deities went on to give rise to the rest of the gods, forming the great Ennead of Heliopolis, a divine family which included Geb, the god of earth, Nut, the goddess of the sky, and their descendants Osiris, Isis, Seth, and Nephthys. Mankind also appeared as a creation of Atum when his tears of joy hit the ground during a very emotional moment. Atum was often depicted as a regal figure, and like the pharaoh, he wore the double crown of Egypt, known as the Shent, which symbolized the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. The pharaoh was considered his son. Just like Atum brought order to the cosmos through his act of creation, so the pharaoh was responsible for maintaining order, Ma'at, in Egypt. The capstones of Egyptian pyramids and the uppermost sections of obelisks were symbolic representations of the primordial mound, Benben, and they were often covered in metal, so they could reflect the light and signal Atum's divine power. In later Egyptian mythology, Atum became conflated with the sun god Ra. However, Ra embodied the sun at its zenith, while Atum symbolized the setting sun. For this reason, Atum was often associated with old age and completion, as well as death and the inevitable return to chaos. In the Book of the Dead, Atum reveals that at the end of time, he will destroy everything he has created, and only he and Osiris will survive, taking the form of snakes. Number 3. Tefnut, the goddess of moisture. Tefnut is Atum's daughter and the twin sister of Shu, the god of air. According to myth, they were sneezed out by their father, and their names are believed to imitate the sound of sneezing or spitting. Tefnut is the Egyptian goddess of moisture, rain and dew, often depicted as a lioness or a woman with the head of a lioness. At first glance, the association between a lioness and moisture might seem unusual, as most felines typically avoid water. However, these animals are also known for using their moist tongues in order to clean their own bodies and the bodies of their offspring. It is possible that the ancient Egyptians saw rain and dew as Tefnut's nurturing touch, akin to a lioness gently licking her cubs. In this life-sustaining, motherly role, Tefnut stands in stark contrast to another lioness goddess, Sekhmet, who embodies war and destruction. The most famous myth about Tefnut and Shu describes how they separated from their father to explore the world, but soon became lost in the vastness of creation. Atum searched desperately for his children, and when he finally found them, he cried tears of joy from which the first humans emerged. Together with Shu, Tefnut had 2 children, Nut and Geb. She and her brother formed the first divine couple in the mythology of Heliopolis. Their union symbolizes the balance of opposing forces in the universe, with Tefnut representing moisture and Shu representing dry air. Number 4. Shu, the god of air. Shu was primarily depicted in human form, wearing an ostrich feather on his head, symbolizing his association with air. However, when paired with Tefnut, he was occasionally portrayed as a lion, particularly in the city of Neta Hut, which the Greeks referred to as Leontopolis, the Lion City. Shu played a crucial role in the creation of life. He is credited with separating the sky, embodied by his daughter Nut, from the earth, embodied by his son Geb, creating the space between them and filling it with air. In art, Shu is often depicted lifting Nut above Geb in this highly symbolic act of creation. Many atmospheric phenomena are attributed to Shu. In the pyramid texts, the mist that gathers over the Nile is referred to as the Lakes of Shu, and was believed to purify the monarch. Similarly, the clouds are called the Bones of Shu, and form a ladder on which the deceased pharaoh ascends to heaven. Shu is even identified with sunlight and serves as one of the protectors of the sun god Ra during his journeys through the underworld. From a philosophical perspective, Shu and Tefnut personify the Egyptian ideas of eternal time. Shu is connected to Nehe, eternal recurrence, due to his association with the solar cycles, while Tefnut is linked with Jet, eternal sameness, through her connection to the Nile. Number 5. Nut, the goddess of the sky. Nut is uniquely magnificent as a goddess with dark blue skin adorned with stars, arching gracefully over the world. She may have originated from ancient associations with the Milky Way, as her form was seen to reflect the galaxy's starry expanse. Nut personifies the vault of the heavens, governing both the day and night skies, as well as the many cosmic phenomena that fascinated ancient astronomers. She and her brother Geb, who also became her lover, formed the second divine pair of Heliopolis, following their parents Shu and Tefnut. Nut and Geb personify the sky and the earth respectively, and their love for each other was so intense that their embrace at the beginning of time threatened to smother creation. It is said that Shu, the god of air, had to intervene and forcefully separate the 2 lovers, creating the necessary space between heaven and earth for life to exist. Nut, after being separated from Geb, remained pregnant with their children. Her grandfather, the sun god Atum-Ra, feared that one of Nut's offspring might eventually overthrow him. In response to this fear, Atum-Ra decreed that Nut would be forbidden from giving birth on any day of the year. Luckily for Nut, the wise god Thoth won 5 extra days for her in a game of dice with the moon, and on these days she was able to give birth to her children: Osiris, Horus the Elder, Set, Isis and Nephthys. This legend explains why the year has 365 days, as the Egyptian calendar consists of 12 months of 30 days each, plus a so-called intercalary month made of 5 days, also known as the birthdays of the gods. Nut is a paradox. She is both motherly and all-devouring. She was believed to swallow the sun every evening and give birth to it in the morning. During the night, the sun traveled through her enormous body. On coffin lids, she is depicted as an embracing mother, with her body arching over the deceased, because her presence is protective and enveloping, guiding the soul through the night sky toward rebirth in the afterlife. Number 6. Geb, the god of the earth. Geb is the brother, husband and polar opposite of Nut. He is the lord of fertile landscapes, holding a goose on his head. While Nut's body is adorned with stars, Geb's body is covered with vegetation, in particular the hieroglyph for reed, which symbolizes his fertility. Geb is often seen lying underneath Nut in a symbolic, sometimes erotic representation of the earth and the sky. It is said that Geb once was a pharaoh. He belongs to the lineage of primordial divine kings who ruled Egypt before the semi-divine human pharaohs assumed power. To him, we owe many wonders of nature, from the Nile's cataracts to the lush fields of wheat and barley, as well as the diverse fauna of the Nile Delta. Geb has two aspects, just like the soil of Egypt was of two types. He can be generous like Kemet, the black land deposited by the annual flooding of the Nile River, rich in nutrients and ideal for agriculture, and he can be unforgiving like Deshret, the red land of dry, arid desert that surrounds the Nile on either side. The Red Land was a place where Geb withheld his blessings. It was associated with death, so tombs, in particular pyramids, were built here. Geb was feared during funerary rites because he could imprison the dead within him, preventing them from ascending to heaven. In addition to that, Geb was considered the father of snakes, and earthquakes were believed to be his evil laughter. It is therefore paradoxical that the ancient Egyptians depicted him in mere human form. In modern times, Geb could be imagined to be as large as the world itself, a rock giant continuously shaping the mountains, a vicious yet sometimes benevolent Trent, or a god with the head of a goose. Number 7. Ra, the sun god. Ra is widely regarded as one of the most important gods in the Egyptian pantheon. His cult seems to have originated in Yunu, an ancient Egyptian town which the Greeks called Heliopolis, the city of the sun. Ra's iconography and theological significance are extremely complex, not only because the sun was considered the supreme divine force in Egyptian mythology, but also because Ra's influence spanned millennia and was intertwined with various other gods and aspects of creation, kingship, and the afterlife. In his most popular form, Ra was also known as Ra Harakti, meaning Ra Horus of the two horizons, through his identification with Horus, the god of the sky and renewal. Ra Harakti is depicted as a falcon, or as a man with the head of a falcon. He crosses the sky during the day in a boat called Manjet. He begins his journey in the morning from the eastern peak, Baku, and arrives in the evening at the western peak, Manu, of a gigantic twin-peaked mountain that supports the world. In art, this mountain is depicted resting on the backs of two lions sitting back to back, symbolizing yesterday and tomorrow, and is often associated with a mysterious horizon deity named Akka. At dawn, Ra is best represented as the scarab beetle god, Ra Khepri, who rolls the solar disk across the sky as if it were a ball of dung. At dusk, Ra takes the form of Atum Ra, the aged and wise version of the sun god who created the world by emerging from the primordial waters of Nun. During the night, the journey of the sun is even more bewildering. Ra is swallowed by the sky goddess Nut and travels through her body or enters the caverns under the earth, passing through the underworld and reviving the dead, but only for the duration of the night. While in this place, where he cannot be seen by mortals, Ra takes the aspect of the ram-headed god Ra-Khnum, who is protected by a surrounding snake called Mehen. The vessel that Ra uses during the night is called Mesektet, and is crewed by many gods, including dead pharaohs who have ascended to divine status. Their role is to safeguard Ra from the forces of chaos, especially the great serpent Apophis, who is the embodiment of darkness. Ra's triumph over Apophis every night proves the supremacy of good over evil and is signaled by the sun's rebirth each morning. The ancient Egyptians believed that Ra once ruled on earth, during a time when the gods mingled with humans. Ra's reign was just and orderly, his daughter Ma'at being the sheer embodiment of this golden era. However, Ra was growing old, and humankind started to conspire against him. Angered by their insolence, Ra sent his other daughter, Sekhmet, the Eye of Ra, to punish the rebels. Like a fierce lioness, Sekhmet unleashed her wrath so powerfully that she threatened to annihilate humanity. Ra was shocked and had to pacify her by either transforming her into the cat goddess Bastet or tricking her into drinking red beer, which she mistook for blood. After this, Ra declared himself too tired of ruling on earth. The goddess Nut assumed the form of a cow, so Ra mounted her and ascended to the heavens. In light of these legends, the pharaohs of Egypt strove to be perceived as worthy descendants of Ra by any means necessary. If they ruled well and were popular, their reigns were said to be with Ra. If they neglected their duties, and especially if they were foreign invaders, their reigns were said to be without Ra. Number 8. Osiris, the god of the underworld. Osiris is one of the most venerated deities in ancient Egyptian mythology, regarded as the god of the afterlife and resurrection. He is believed to have ruled over Egypt during pre-dynastic times until he was murdered by his usurping brother, Set. After his sister wife Isis retrieved his body and resurrected him, turning him into the first mummy, Osiris took on the role of ruler of Duat, the Egyptian underworld. Some of the distinctive symbols of Osiris are the Atef crown, which links him to Upper Egypt, the crook and the flail, seen as scepters of kingship, and the Djed pillar, which suggests stability and continuity. A mere combination of these symbols can be used to represent Osiris. However, he is more commonly depicted in human form, with green skin to symbolize regeneration and rebirth. The death of the god Osiris is one of the central myths of Egyptian mythology. His treacherous brother Set is traditionally portrayed as being motivated by envy and greed, though a possible affair between Osiris and Set's wife, Nephthys, who later gave birth to Anubis, may have contributed to the conflict. According to the Greek writer Plutarch, Set conspired against Osiris with 72 accomplices. They organized a grand festivity, during which Set presented a beautifully crafted sarcophagus, promising to give it to anyone who could fit perfectly inside. Osiris, tempted to try it, lay inside the coffin, but as soon as he did, Set slammed the lid and sealed it with molten lead. The coffin was then thrown into the Nile to be carried away by the current. The distraught goddess Isis began a tireless search for her husband's body. She eventually found it on the shores of the Mediterranean Sea, in the city of Byblos, in the region now known as Lebanon, where the coffin of Osiris had become encased within the trunk of a tamarisk tree, which was later fashioned into a palace column. Set was enraged to hear that Isis had recovered Osiris's body, so he attacked it again, cutting it into many pieces and scattering them across Egypt. Isis, accompanied by her sister Nephthys, traveled in a papyrus boat to find the fragments and rebuild her husband's body. Using her magic, she reassembled the pieces and restored them from decay, while Anubis wrapped the body in mummy bandages. Osiris was brought back to life, and he and Isis shared a brief moment of love, from which their son, Horus, was conceived. Horus was destined to become the new king because Osiris could no longer rule on Earth despite his resurrection. The trauma of his death had marked him so deeply that he was almost unrecognizable, becoming too distant and detached for earthly matters. In the underworld, however, he became a wise ruler, punishing wrongdoers cruelly and rewarding the virtuous with access to the field of reeds, or Aru, the heavenly paradise in Egyptian mythology. Osiris became the model for any pharaoh who aspired to secure eternal life in the afterlife. He was a symbol of resurrection and a savior of souls. During the Middle Kingdom, the belief in Osiris's promise of resurrection expanded beyond royalty, and even noblemen and commoners hoped to achieve immortality through their devotion to him. He was also regarded as an agricultural deity, as the cycles of death and renewal in the plant world mirrored Osiris' own cycle of resurrection. The mythical scattering of Osiris' dismembered body resulted in numerous cities across Egypt claiming to house the burial sites of various divine fragments, such as a leg or an arm. The primary religious centers devoted to Osiris were Abydos in Upper Egypt, believed to be the location of his head, and Busiris in the Nile Delta, thought to contain his backbone. In Abydos, the important annual festival of Khoiak featured elaborate rituals and ceremonies honoring Osiris, including dramatic reenactments of his myth. Participants immersed themselves, both as actors and spectators, in the thrilling tale of his betrayal, death, and miraculous resurrection. Number 9. Set, the god of the desert. Set is one of the main villains in ancient Egyptian mythology. He is the god of chaos, storms, and violence, symbolizing the ever-shifting sands of the desert. Set's appearance is based on a mysterious, mythological creature which has no direct counterpart in reality, the Set animal or Shah. The Set animal has a long, curved snout and upright rectangular ears. It has been compared to an aardvark, a donkey, a fennec fox, or a Saluki dog. However, its true kind remains elusive, embodying the ambiguity and confusion that Set represents. Set's most infamous act was the murder of his brother Osiris in a bid to seize the throne of Egypt. His ambition and thirst for power were matched only by his ruthlessness. As he dismembered the body of Osiris, this act set off a series of events, leading to a legendary struggle between Set and Horus, Osiris's son, for control of the kingdom. In the end, Horus won, signaling the triumph of the forces of good and order. Despite his misdeeds, Set's character is more complex than a purely evil figure. In other contexts, he is seen as a necessary force in the balance of the universe, embodying the destructive aspects of nature that are crucial for renewal. Moreover, Set also plays the role of protector when he defends Ra, the sun god, from the serpent Apophis during Ra's nightly journey through the underworld. Set's strength was considered formidable, and some pharaohs had been named after him. Set even had temples and followers, especially in the city of Nubt, also known as Ombos. However, in the later periods of ancient Egyptian history, Set was regarded more and more as the god of the foreign invaders who terrorized Egypt. His reputation became so tainted that his cult was completely suppressed, and Set's name and images were deliberately chiseled out of some monuments or temple walls. In particular, Set's birthday was considered a very unlucky day. Number 10. Isis, the goddess of magic. Isis is without a doubt one of the most important goddesses in Egyptian mythology. She is associated with magical practices such as healing and resurrection, and is celebrated as the devoted wife of Osiris and the protective mother of Horus. Isis is often depicted with wings and holding the Ankh, the Egyptian symbol of life and immortality. She bears the symbol of a throne on her head, representing her past rule over Egypt alongside her husband Osiris. Their happy marriage was shattered by Set, who killed Osiris and dismembered his body. Distraught, Isis embarked on a quest to find the scattered fragments. Legend says she recovered every piece except one, either the phallus or the heart, which she replaced with an artificial replica. Using magic, she revived Osiris by transforming into a bird and breathing life back into his body. From their union, her son Horus was conceived. To escape Set's fury, Isis fled to the Nile Delta with Horus, where she raised him in secrecy. She healed Horus from a scorpion sting and devoted herself to nurturing him. When Horus grew up, Isis fought legal battles to reclaim his rightful inheritance. Her actions exemplified courage and devotion, inspiring both women and men alike. In another famous myth, Isis's cleverness and ambition shine through when she tricks the sun god Ra into revealing his secret name, giving her power over him and greatly enhancing her magical abilities. As a wife and mother, healer and provider of eternal life, Isis revealed herself in many aspects to her followers. Her prestige was immense, and she was worshipped throughout Egypt, with her most famous temple on the island of Philae. Around the 4th century BCE, her cult spread across the ancient world to places like Rome and Athens, where people referred to it as the Mysteries of Isis. In modern times, Isis has been reinvented as a symbol of the divine feminine, appearing in spiritual movements, literature, and art as an enduring figure whose legacy continues to inspire. Number 11. Nephthys, the goddess of sorrow. Nephthys symbolizes sorrow and mourning, and by extension death, ruins and desolation. She is the twin sister of Isis, and together with her, she is a mourner and protector of Osiris's body during his death and resurrection. Nephthys is the wife of Set, but their marriage is often depicted as loveless and barren. Because Set is the god of infertility, Nephthys was not able to conceive a child with him, so she resorted to deception, seducing Osiris by pretending to be her sister, Isis, with whom she closely resembled. The resulting baby was the dog-headed god Anubis, associated with mummification and the afterlife. Nephthys's infidelity did not go unnoticed by Set, who, in a fit of rage, punished Osiris in the most horrific manner. Devastated by the consequences of her actions, Nephthys joined forces with her sister, Isis, to stand against Set's fury. Is Nephthys evil? When she seduced Osiris, she embodied the Machiavellian principle of the end justifies the means. Her overwhelming desire for a child drove her to deceive both her husband and her sister, prioritizing her longing for motherhood above loyalty and trust. But Isis acted in a similar Machiavellian way when she manipulated and deceived Ra in order to receive immense power and knowledge. So it can be said that both sisters were punished by fate and redeemed themselves through suffering and their deep love for Osiris. Together, Isis and Nephthys represent the duality between day and night, life and death, light and darkness. One of their main roles is aiding the deceased in their journey through the underworld.